Now we have on the line Adegbie-Quaynor. He's the representative of the IFC in Nigeria, the resident representative, and he'll be talking us through sustainable banking principles and the project that they're doing with the Central Bank of Nigeria. Solomon, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. So Nigeria's banking sector, of course, has gone through a spate of reforms over the last few years, and now the bankers have come together and agreed that they want to implement sustainable principles. Just talk us through the impact that this is likely to have on the way the business of banking is done, and of course, perhaps even the growth of banking.
Okay, no, Wale, thank you very much. I think, what is important is the first thing you mentioned, which is it's really through the vision of the central bank and the leadership of the bankers committee, which is, which has on that committee all the bank CEOs that, they have come up with and they own the sustainable banking principles for Nigeria. What we anticipate it's going to result from this would really be, better and more responsible lending to sectors that will contribute better to economic development. That's number one. More responsible lending that would lead to, better projects. So projects in which environmental and social risks are, better and more proactively managed from the onset. And given some of the history in Nigeria, especially in the oil and gas sector, it's important that, banks on their own have made this decision. We also, do expect that it will begin to look at the renewable sector in power, especially, and so it should help. It should help really in enhancing power supply, not only to industries but also to the poorest in the population through renewable sources such as solar energy, potentially even wind energy, and also hydro. So those are really the expectations on what the benefits could be. And, the benefits are not really coming from a do-good approach, but, a business case. We as a financial institution, a global one, if you take a look at our portfolio, where we've adhered to good environmental and social principles, it's resulted in good business for us and huge growth in also our lending portfolio.
Right. You just talked about it resulting in good business for yourself and huge growth. Does this translate to growth, significant growth in the banking sector in your view? I mean, you mentioned quite a few interesting areas where the banks can get involved, like wind energy, etc. So wind-based energy. So talk us through what this could mean for growth in the sector.
So if you take a look at some of the new sectors that banks are focusing on, it's the oil and gas sector, especially on the upstream side. It's also the power sector as a result of the recent reforms. And let's even just look at those two principal sectors. In addition, it's also agriculture. Okay, these are where we've seen a lot of reforms, at least in the country. Now, by employing good environmental and social, principles, the banks are going to be able to more prudently grow their portfolios in these sectors. Okay, so we do expect to see them growing their asset base, more sensibly in oil and gas, in power, and most of the reform power projects would also be gas projects, and gas, from an environmental and social perspective, is a far greater improvement from the use of diesel or petrol or heavy fuel oils. So when we look at good environmental and social approaches, that also includes power projects that are gas fired. Right. And when we take a look also at agriculture, better water resource management. Sometimes we think water is an abundant resource and we will not have limitations going forward. But if we more prudently, have water resource management, better irrigation systems, this should also lead to, greater yields and more competitiveness, in the agriculture sector. And hence also banks will be more comfortable, lending and supporting financing in that sector.